All right, good morning. This is the Troy Community Land Bank Acquisition and Disposition Committee meeting held pursuant to Executive Order 202.1 on January 20th, 2021. And the chair, please call the roll.
Yep. Good morning. It's 8:34. Heather King,
Here.
Tony Tazi,
Here.
Jeanette. What's your last name in front of you? I'm sorry.
It's okay. But here.
And Catherine Hedgeman.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. We have before us the December 9th meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
Brian, Brian, I have a question about, I guess, what is it, number 6 under enforcement? About 3036. Tony, did you ever talk to Dieter?
No, we're still waiting for him to close on 790 River Street, which we found out a day ago. He's ready to close. So as soon as that's done, I have every intention to sit down and have a direct conversation with him.
All righty.
Okay. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So moved. No purchase applications to discuss. Properties approved for sale status. Tony?
Well, as I just mentioned, 790 River Street, Derek Jeter's indicated he's ready to close. So we got that message, I think it was on Monday, it might have been yesterday. So that's ready to go. 899 River Street has been very frustrating. Kate's been tearing her hair out. The city reverter is still on title, and it's been difficult to communicate with City Hall to get that taken care of. Yesterday, Deputy Mayor Monica asked Kate to basically do the work that the city should be doing to get this done, and Kate's happily agreed to do that. So at least this being in our control now, we'll be able to get it done.
Okay.
Yep. So on that 899 River and 103 Ferry, I just have to draft the documents from the mayor's signature. So I am going to make that a priority the next day or so. We've been trying to close these since December, and it just has been ridiculous. And as you know, we need the cash. So I've really tried to move this along for you. So hopefully the mayor will sign it. I'm hoping by the end of the week or Monday at the latest. Once I have that original, we are ready to go. So I will get these closed as soon as possible, maybe late next week.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thanks, Kate.
Yep.
Moving on to enforcement, foreclosure status updates.
Yep. So the complaint was signed by Tony on 3209, 3211, 7th, I think it is. And I probably will be filing that sometime tomorrow, electronic filing, and get that out to be served to recover that property. The other properties, the 785 River, and I think it is, what is it? I always forget the
836.
836. I paused that and I wanted to just quickly talk about it today. If you recall, we talked about the status of the building not being in such great shape and probably needing at a minimum stabilization work. So I was hoping you would all discuss that and see if you want to move forward with the board resolution to take those properties back. I have a legal recommendation, but I understand that there's other things at play here. So Tony, I don't think you've even had a chance to take a look at the condition again, have you?
No, and it's difficult because frankly, the building is in such a deteriorated state that I don't think it's safe to walk inside the building to even do an evaluation. I think somebody would have to fly a drone in or something before any further attempt to access it should be done. So my observation was when I was on top of 791 River Street a month or maybe two ago, I looked over and saw the roof of 785, and it just showed that it was definitely starting to open up. And some of the chimneys, the masonry at most of the chimneys was starting to collapse. So that's what I observed.
So the board has already voted to take these properties back. So, technically I should be moving forward with that, but I put the pause on because of the condition, and, it's probably going to take, I would say, 60 days to get it back anyway. But, I mean, if you don't have the finances to stabilize it, I understand that position. But at the same time, the liability isn't, from my opinion, much less if you don't take it back, because we have an enforcement note and we didn't really, keep an eye on the work of the progress, to make sure that it got done. And if something were to happen over there, it would result in maybe a demo and a demo lien, and then go right back to the city in foreclosure. And do you really want that? So I do think if you move forward, you certainly need a plan, if something needs to be done to the buildings, but you're not going to get possession of it much quicker than 60 days anyway.
So it's going to go through the winter regardless.
Yeah, I mean, I can bring it on quick with an order to show cause, and get that going quicker. But you're probably going to shorten it to 30 days because there's, certain time periods where we have to give notice. So I can't get around those.
Kate, you're saying that there's more liability or less liability by
Well,
taking
the real-
foreclosing?
Yeah, I mean, the real issue here is, and other land banks have been in the same position, it's kind of well, geez, if we take it back and it becomes a demo, do we have the 40,000 to demo it? I'm just using this as an example. And, when you take that position, it's number one, you've got to commence an action against somebody else to take it back. You have to be careful that, in all fairness, that you're enforcing properties equally. And two, while the liability, I guess, wouldn't be on the land bank if something were to happen to the properties while he's the owner, it's been my experience with other land banks that, the municipality looks at the land bank and says, well, how come this didn't get done? And, it's a problem for the land bank because of the optics, right? And, from an enforcement perspective too, we're supposed to be making sure this gets done. It would be one thing if it worked out well, like 822 River, where the buyer said, listen, I've had some issues, but I'm moving forward. Here's my new plan. But in this case, and in the case of 3209, 3211, 7th, like they won't even respond to us. So, I think you got to do something here, but that's your call. Because what you're going to have to do at the back end, I'll just say this one last thing. If you choose not to take it back And if the owner is not responsive to us to move the project forward, essentially you've got a lien on a property, you might as well just discharge it.
Yeah.
And walk away. But, again, I don't know that that's a good outcome.
Right. So if we take action like today, when does the property become ours? 60 days from now?
Well, I've got to bring a court action. And
Right.
like I said, I put that one on pause because I know the committee's been discussing it because there's no plan yet to stabilize or even look at the building to see what's going on over there. But let's say I could get it filed sometime next week in order to show cause. The soonest I could bring it on would probably be first week in February. And then there's a return date. So the judge is going to require 12 days from there. So you're probably looking at 4 to 6 weeks to get an order giving the property back.
And do you think it makes sense just to talk with the city and say, this is the situation we're in here? Here's a owner that hasn't followed through. The building's compromised. We can take action to take it back, but it may need to be demolished, and we're not sure we have the cash to do that.
I just don't know what the city can do to make him. I mean, the real issue is, let's say they cite the building and there's code violations or whatever, then when we go to take it back, it's already been cited, I mean, I don't know. I doubt very much the city is going to have demo money, but I don't know.
Yeah, I would say if the city does have demo money, it's probably already been allocated for certain buildings.
Mhm.
And this is not their property, so my guess is they're not going to want to spend money on a building that's not theirs.
Yeah.
Well, if
But
they
the-
have to demo it while it's owned does the lien goes on the previous owner, correct?
Yeah,
For
the
the
lien will
demo?
go on, the lien will go on him. And then they can foreclose that lien by, taking the possession of the property back. I mean, from a legal standpoint, the enforcement note, what that really does, and our whole process does, is it puts a legal obligation on the buyer to do the project, but it also puts the obligation on the land bank to monitor it and make sure it gets done. So, as long as the lien stays on there, we have an obligation to be doing that. I think for the most part, with the demands we've made, we've tried, we certainly have. But, and I can't recall, but I think these properties are way past he's owned them like 2 years, I think, at least.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
So I do think, you might want to do an assessment, but, if the assessment comes back and it's going to be expensive, is that going to change your mind? I mean, I think that, why spend the time going through all that? As long as it's structurally sound, you might be able to put it back out on the market and not have to do much of anything and try and sell it or whatever we're going to do.
Mhm.
I mean, I personally feel that it's kind of our obligation. This person hasn't followed through, that we need to follow our own guidelines as
Yeah.
far as moving forward. And I wouldn't, if you want to go ahead and start the process, it is really lengthy right now to do the foreclosure process and take them back. And if we decide we can have we have at least months, we have future conversations where we can kind of see what needs to be done to the buildings, but we don't have to rush and do that. That could be in a few months down the line, get some kind of assessments in there.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, and you all know this, the minute that complaint is served, you will have his attention.
Yeah. So, I mean, and now with things are hopefully going to be loosening up with COVID, there's going to be movement in multiple areas now. So, and there's a shortage of properties, and I'm hoping also with a new realtor that we might be able, if we pop it back on the market, we might get some activity on it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't see any reason to hesitate at this point.
okay. I just, Tony, I know had some concerns and I get it, you know what I mean? And we are in a financial, crunch right now, but let me get these properties closed too, and we'll all feel a lot better.
Yeah, let's get the properties closed, and then I think move forward on the foreclosure and just kind of see where the chips fall.
Okay. All right.
Moving on. Tony, do we want to do updates on projects first? Do we have any updates on properties?
Not really. Our projects are the only things that are really moving along, other than the sales that Kate and I just talked about.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, this is really all we've got. So, let's see. For 791 River Street, do we want to talk about that in an open public meeting, or do we want to do executive session on that, Kate?
If it's just a report, I think you're okay in the public meeting, but if you need to ask me some things, then, we certainly can go into an attorney-client privileged executive session.
Okay. I don't think we'll have to do that, but so the status of the project from Tony Diadamo's statements to me. He had some of his crew travel to Florida for the holidays, and Tony had I guess, a close friend who died of COVID, and he suddenly is taking that very seriously. And when he learned some of his crew came back from Florida, he said, "You need to go in quarantine. I don't want to see you, on any job sites." So then a couple wives from other folks got COVID. So he's basically told them, "I don't want the crew back to work anywhere until everybody is clean and healthy." So now there has been no progress as far as the crew goes, for the past, I guess, month. So that's the downside. The upside is that the HVAC, the fire sprinkler, is is all in place and operational. I was yesterday there with an inspector from Pioneer Bank, because I've requested a draw from the construction loan. That went well. I was finally able to actually verify that there are three furnaces. There's a furnace that's really tucked in an odd location, but it's there. So we did have a contractor start to do an estimate for us, and he gave me a verbal estimate, and he still wants to work out some of the details before he actually finalizes it. But his verbal ballpark estimate is about $175,000 to do all the corrections and to complete all the work that needs to be done. And he kind of ran down a laundry list with me, but I think you all recall what those things are. Things like replacing the back stairs, taking care of the masonry odds and ends, the flooring.
Does it include correcting the corridor?
Yes. Yeah.
The hallway, rather.
So we have a balance of 209,470. So those are our numbers. Again, this is preliminary verbal estimate. So
Tony,
yep.
are we allowed to go for the stuff that's corrective, the items that are corrective and not the finished work? Are we allowed to go back to Tony and request compensation for that? The original contractor?
I think that's a Kate question, but I think that's that. So the way I see this going forward, and Kate, stop me, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're starting to get a focused figure on what the cost would be to make this building right. Once we have that information, you know, chiseled, so to speak, then I think we need to finalize Beth's list, which she's working on. I'll talk about that a little bit. Um, and then I think we need to ask Tony Diadamo, okay, here's the list. Tell us how you're going to correct these things. And then we'll know, we'll kind of have a stereo vision of what has to happen. We'll know what the cost is that bringing another contractor. We'll know what the cost. We'll know at least what the proposal is from Diadamo. And I think at that point, we can make decisions on what direction we want to go in. And if the direction includes negotiating with Diadamo in any way, shape, or form, I think that's part of the process, you know, potentially and probably. As far as getting the list from Beth, there was a miscommunication between Beth and Bolton Construction. Beth, I had told Beth that Bolton found more things wrong with the building than she was able to find. So she said, I don't want to do my list until I know what those items are, so that my list is as complete as it can be. At the same time, Bolton Construction was waiting for Beth's list. So each side was waiting for information from the other, and neither knew it. So I got on the phone with them yesterday, and that clarification has been made. So I expect Beth will start getting the list done pretty expeditiously. I had started a list, if you guys recall, about a month ago. So I gave that to Beth. So at least she's got a kind of a jump start. But once a final list is prepared by Beth, then I think Bolton Construction will provide a final formal estimate. Now, from what Kate's told me, if we do go with another contractor to remedy the things wrong with this building, we are going to have to RFP it. So we can't just take Bolton Construction's estimate and say, okay, we're going to award the contract to you, or have the existing contract assigned to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a big contract. And before we can RFP it, we would have to sever our relationship with Tony Diadamo, correct?
I'm sorry,
Yes.
Kate, or Heather.
Yeah. And a quick question, if we RFP it, how much time do we give them to put that in, the bid?
Well, I think you need at least 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay. I have no confidence in Tony Diadamo.
Neither do I.
And I don't know if we're going to get any other contractors to put a bid in, to be honest with you.
Greco is interested. There is another contractor interested. I think they'll be
Okay.
much higher, but
Yeah, then it's good to always have more than one bid. Okay.
If we're gonna talk about next steps and what your decision and recommendation to the board is gonna be, that is better served in attorney-client privilege session.
Okay.
So I don't know whether you want to go into that, or you know,
Well, do you want to go through the other projects, Tony? And then we'll,
sure. That's exactly what I was thinking. So yesterday I visited all 4 sites. 11 Winnie Avenue, Johnny Bobo and his crew was, they were going full bore. the building is getting very close to being completed, with the exception of putting on a new back porch, which I assume is going to happen in warmer weather. But he's down to having the walls painted. The one issue we have is National Grid needs to move the gas lines from the cellar to the outside, and I need to pay a bill for National Grid to do that, and I don't have the cash to pay that bill. So that the lack of having permanent heat in the building is preventing Bobo from putting a final coat of paint on, and he doesn't want to put a final coat of paint on. He wants to put the final coat of paint on before he does the finished floors because it's just cleaner and easier. So that's the status with 11 Winnie. I also talked to Russ Reeves about it yesterday, who's been inspecting it, and he's very pleased with the work. 54 Fifth Avenue, the stabilization in the basement is it's amazing. It just looks like a completely different place. I mean, it's just a basement, but it looks radically different. The design that Reeves came up with, the building is it's got a strong foundation now, and it's all open. It's very clean. In the front hallway, they have removed the original staircase, and they have replaced that. And they have also in the front entranceway constructed a new set of stairs to go directly down into the basement. And a lot of framing has been done on the first and second floor in preparation for the renovation of the rest of the building. Replacement windows have all been put in place. Replacement front door, replacement back door, front stairs, back stairs, landings, they've been constructed. The one issue we ran into a little bit of a problem with has been getting heat into the building. Between George Brower from SEAT and myself, we have, between the two of us, contacted 3 HVAC contractors, and actually also the Sheet Metals Union, who was thinking about making this into a little project with Youth Build. And we're not getting responses from the people. Say they're going to show up and they don't, or people show up and they'll say they'll have an estimate, within yet so many days, and it doesn't come and you never hear from them again. So that's been very, very frustrating. I talked to George yesterday when I was there. I also talked to Russ Reeves later on in the day, and George and Russ were thinking about having one furnace to heat both units of the building. And I said, I don't think that's a great idea because it's going to make the building just less marketable. And, that's kind of the old school way of doing it. They wanted to put electric water heaters in instead of gas, and there's gas meters right there. So I said, guys, let's do what's efficient and not what's cheap. So the end of my conversation with Reeves was I suggested that he consider using the Navient tankless water heaters for radiant heat for each of the 2 units. And he spoke with Dan's Heating.
Family dance.
And yeah, Family Dan's, yeah. and they thought that was probably the best way to go forward in terms of cost and efficiency, and being able to have both units separately billed, metered. So I think that's the direction it's going to go in. Reeves is just trying to get estimates from Dan's at this point to see what the cost is and whether we need to RFP, whether it's over $15,000 or not. We don't think it will be, but we don't know for sure yet. So that's 54, 3229. boy, it's hard to describe that one because it's all stabilization and it's in a state of, you know, I want to say it looks 75% complete to me. There are photos I took yesterday, and um, I can circulate those around to you all, and I think you'll have a pretty good sense of how far the progress has gone. Um, sorry. So I think it's moving forward. It's just not done yet.
Okay.
Um, what else? And I've started talking to Seed about potential projects when 54 Fifth is complete. And they're interested in taking 3229 Sixth Ave for full renovation. So it's just early conversation. But I just wanted to mention it since we're talking about these properties.
Shall we adjourn into executive session? We have a motion,
I'll make a motion.
second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
No.
Aye.
Aye.